Hello, everybody. We are starting day 2 of the UW Blockchain Stampede. Thank you all for being here. Amazingly successful Bitcoin day yesterday. It was fun. We had a lot of, lively discussions, and today's a little bit different. What we're gonna do today is kind of where the rubber hits the road. What we're going to be talking about today is real world projects that are happening here at the university. We're going to be doing a lot of policy and regulation discussions, and you're going to meet with the people that are actually doing the projects. We have the distinct pleasure of having our superintendent of education here. Thank you so much. She has been an amazing proponent of this technology across the state, and so I'm really looking forward to spending some time with her. And we want to have a lively discussion. We want to have you engage with our speakers. And I want to start though by asking Dr. Cam Wright to come up and join us, just to say hello. And we want to thank our sponsors. These events don't happen without sponsor support. And, we every year get an amazing bench of sponsors. Our 2 primary sponsors this year are Cardano, IOG, and we have representatives here from Cardano, and CleanSpark, which is Bitcoin mining that sponsored a lot of yesterday. And also Custodia, if you could wave, to Caitlin. Without our sponsors, events like this simply don't happen. And so you'll be hearing from a lot of our sponsors throughout the day about the projects they're working on, the importance of the initiatives we're doing here in Wyoming, the real advantage that Wyoming brings into this space. And so if you do have an opportunity to bump into the sponsors when you're out in the hallways and having a muffin or something like that, please, thank them. And because again, without their support, events like this simply do not happen. So I just want to introduce Dr. Cam Wright. A little bit of history. When we started the Blockchain Center 7 years ago, it was a consortium of deans that recognized that blockchain didn't belong in one academic unit. One of the real challenges that happen in many universities, and right now I think it's becoming acute, is blockchain was put into an individual unit within a university. In many cases, it's in their computer science unit. It may be in their business unit. And one thing universities don't do well is have their academic units talk to each other. And so we learned a lesson from some of the early universities, in particular University of Arkansas. And we set out to do something very different here at the University of Wyoming. And Dr. Wright was one of the driving forces behind that. So when the cbdi was first formed 7 years ago, believe it or not now, it was actually a consortium of engineering, the College of Business, our School of Energy, and our School of Agriculture. And we have reaped the benefits of that so much, because when you look at the projects that we're doing, you're going to hear from people like Amanda Martinez sitting here on the corner, who is going to talk about how we're using energy credits that are being created in our School of Energy. And we're going to be talking about other projects where we're working with Homeland Security. And if you're siloed, then those projects simply don't happen because the communication doesn't happen. And the other thing that's kind of happening into the blockchain space in some universities, but not ours, is in many cases, blockchain isn't the shiny object it was 7 years ago. AI and machine learning and other technologies, zero knowledge proofs, which all fit within what we're doing at the CBDI, are gaining some provenance or providence, and we've been able to stay relevant because we have been working across multiple academic units and solving problems for multiple academic units, and it's kept us relevant. In fact, this year in our 7 years was our largest fundraising year that we've had. So it's just been a tremendous success, and a lot of that comes from the forward thinking of folks like Dr. Wright, who recognized early on that this was something different, and that if we structured it a little bit differently, then I think we could make a difference. So I just if you want to just take 1 or 2 minutes and just share your thoughts about why the hell you thought 7 years ago that we were a good idea, I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I would say that first off, it's just Cam. Dr. Wright is too formal. When Steve and I first started talking about this, I knew that Wyoming was making great strides, not just in the country, but probably worldwide, in terms of blockchain and some of the digital currency things. And certainly Caitlin was a big part of that. You'll hear more about that. And, it just seemed like it was something Wyoming could really get ahead on if we really put our minds to it. And Wyoming has the big advantage of, especially in our legislature, we're somewhat more monolithic than a lot of legislatures. There's not a lot of infighting. There aren't two big factions that are in there. And so we were able to push together these things. And it seemed like, as Steve was saying, that going across colleges was the way to do it. To silo it into one college, which then would probably end up being a department and everything. It just wouldn't have the effect that we wanted. We wanted it to go across the whole university. So are we moving on to our...
Yeah, let Caitlin.
Yes.
And kind of kick us off and then get the program going.
Hey, please, let's welcome Caitlin Long.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's such a pleasure to see a big group here and online for the 8th annual Wyoming Blockchain Stampede, originally the hackathon. Some of you have been, Jesse, I'm looking at you, been here since the very beginning, been to all 8. A few of us have made all 8, but it's fun to see how much it's grown. Back when we started, it was just an idea, and it was a very informal group of people in Wyoming who said we had an opportunity to get out ahead as a state and to grab the initiative to try to decentralize power in these technologies away from the power centers of the United States, in particular, finance in New York, regulatory in DC, and even Silicon Valley in California. There's no reason why everything has to be there. And why not Wyoming was the answer. We have a great history of leadership in certain areas. This state gave women the right to vote 50 years before the rest of the United States did. In fact, actually, this mural, which is unfortunately covered up by the screen, is a testament to the women's suffrage movement. There are a lot of women here who are depicted on the screen who were involved with giving women the right to vote. So we led the United States on that. It took 50 years for the rest of the U.S. to catch up to us. And limited liability companies were invented in Wyoming in 1977. Most of you probably set your startups up as LLCs, not corporations. That idea was hatched here in Wyoming. And it took, I think, 7 or 8 years to get the IRS to give an opinion. Once the IRS gave that opinion, that it could get passed through treatment for tax purposes, then it ended up spreading like wildfire around the country. Delaware overtook Wyoming as the #1 state for registering LLCs, but Wyoming is #2 behind Delaware, which is where, of course, most corporations still register. Although if you're watching the news, a lot of companies are leaving Delaware because the court decisions have not respected shareholder rights and shareholders' decisions to drive company to actually manage the companies And as a result, you've seen a lot of companies exit to Texas, in particular, Nevada and Wyoming. So we have that history of leading and having the rest of the country follow. And even in blockchain, in an area where probably most of you don't pay attention, but every one of you touch every day, which is the Uniform Commercial Code. Every commercial transaction is governed by the law, and there's law that defines the rights and obligations of parties to a transaction. And Wyoming led in the UCC for digital assets. In fact, it started kind of as a fight because the Uniform Law Commission wants all 50 states' laws to be uniform. They weren't happy that a state stuck its nose out and went ahead. And of course, they pointed out little things that needed to be fixed, which is normal in legislation. But they sent a letter. You'll appreciate this. They sent a letter to the senators saying, "Oh, this is terrible. It's the worst thing ever." And there were 30 senators at the time, and the senators got this letter saying, just excoriating what Wyoming was doing. And you know what their reaction was? They were so ornery that they said, "We've got to be over the target if we're pissing off this national group of lawyers." And so it ran up the vote count on that bill, and that bill passed in 2018. They ended up calling us, that national group of lawyers, and said, "Let's stop fighting and let's go help you fix what the things that we needed to fix," admittedly, in that first bill draft. And then we ended up joining forces, and Uniform Commercial Code Article 12 was implemented about 3 years ago, and it's been now passed into law in more than half of the U.S. states. This is really important for those of you who are doing anything with digital assets in finance, because it actually gives the parties a roadmap for what you need to do if there's a dispute, and it gives judges the roadmap for adjudicating those disputes. And frankly, the banking industry would not be able to get involved in any of this if there weren't clarity on the legal rights, and if we couldn't understand what final settlement actually means under the law. Trace Mayer, who was one of the early supporters of this event, some of you know Trace, he started buying Bitcoin at 25 cents. He hasn't been as active in recent years. But he was a teenager when he started buying Bitcoin at 25 cents. He's done very well in life. He's moved on to have a family and focus on other things. But Trace was the one who said, we need to make sure that the legal system is not an attack on this technology. And therefore, we need to make sure that the legal system is backwards compatible with the technology, so that what you do in code isn't overturned by a judge who doesn't understand it or who doesn't have the proper roadmap for adjudicating it. So today is application day. Yesterday we had a really great Bitcoin day. Some phenomenal information came out. I learned that there's at least one person who estimates that 1% of the hash rate in the Bitcoin network is based in Wyoming. I think that's a little high, probably, but we're getting there. Boy, there's some big Bitcoin mines here in Wyoming, and that is very significant. And then also, there was an interesting chart. This is always a debate, but how big is the Bitcoin network relative to supercomputers? Fascinating chart. It's massively surpassed all the supercomputers in the world combined. The Bitcoin network, and of course, we're a decentralized network, but the compute capacity in that network is by far the largest. Those were a couple of things that I took away from Bitcoin Day yesterday. So today is application day. We're going to hear about non-financial applications, real-world applications, a lot of track and trace, a lot of government regulation and registration, and then where we are with Washington, D.C., which is catching up. I'll close by saying a special thank you to Senator Lummis and her staff. A lot of folks don't realize that the person who did most of the heavy lifting on the Genius Act drafting was the same person who drafted Wyoming's original blockchain laws. He was working in Wyoming at the time, and then she grabbed him to come to Washington, D.C. So the things that you are doing here actually do have impacts nationally. And I would encourage you to continue to make your voices heard, make your ideas heard, because Wyoming wants to hear them. Thank you for coming. Thank you to our sponsors for making this possible. And Cam, back to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Caitlin. Before we go any further, I just want to make sure we've mentioned all of our sponsors. I believe Steve had mentioned Input Output and CleanSpark, America's Bitcoin miner. They certainly have helped get this one going and also have contributed towards future events as well. We also have other sponsors, Tax Network USA, Inc., Custodia Bank, of course, Gannett Trust, Ripple, Kraken. We have partners here at the university that include the College of Business, the College of Law, the Bitcoin Research Center, the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences, Department of Electrical Engineering and Computer Science, the School of Energy Resources, and the School of Computing. And special thanks to SALT, a community of the world's foremost innovators, creators, and thinkers. I also want to acknowledge that we received a lot of help this year from Kylie Zanini of the University of Wyoming Foundation to help with all the contributions and things, and her help was invaluable. Now, I will hit the screen here in a moment. We have a welcoming message from Governor Mark Gordon. Unfortunately, he was not able to be here in person, although he's been here to multiple earlier blockchain stampedes. He had a scheduling conflict this time. So let me play Governor Gordon's video for you.
Hello, I am Governor Mark Gordon, and I am honored by your invitation to speak with you during this momentous occasion, the 8th Annual Wyoming Blockchain Stampede. And boy, I got to tell you, I am really sorry I could not join you in person today. But this year marks a very significant time in Wyoming's history. After nearly a decade of envisioning, laying the legislative, legal, and procurement framework, Wyoming made history last month with its mainnet launch of the first fiat-backed, state-issued stable token. Our state is now positioned as a national leader in the blockchain space. To those unaware of the details, the Wyoming Stable Token Commission deployed the Frontier token through a partnership with Fireblocks and Layer Zero over 7 blockchain networks: Ethereum, Solana Avalanche, Polygon, Arbitrum, Optimism, and Base Blockchain. Buyers will soon get access to the token through the Wyoming-based digital asset exchange, Kraken. As the state of Wyoming is on the eve of making the Frontier stable token available to users worldwide, know this: it would not have been possible without the innovative efforts, diligence, brilliance, and hard work of many of you hearing this message. Your collaborative efforts, along with those of our legislature, the Wyoming Stable Token Commission, Executive Director Anthony Apollo, and his staff, have put Wyoming on the map with another historical first, and is proof of our long-standing pioneer spirit. These achievements could only have happened here in Wyoming. No other state in the nation is in the enviable position we are today. To those of you who poured your energies into this effort on behalf of Wyoming, I want to thank you. Our work has been methodical and deliberate from day one. In the last 2 years, we have established the 7-member Wyoming Stable Token Commission, hired in a director and staff, selected our service providers and partners through an extensive and transparent procurement process. We have also adopted the first set of state rules governing reserves and token management. All of this was done openly and in full public view. Once established, Wyoming's Frontier token will diversify our state's revenue sources with interest income directed to public education. It will grant users low-fee fund transfers 24/7 worldwide, and it will be absolutely secure. Frontier has the potential to strengthen the U.S. dollar's role in the global economy by integrating stable tokens backed by U.S. treasuries into the financial system. I encourage your continued efforts focused on ways to use blockchain to benefit both yourselves and Wyoming. Working collaborative, we can make positive strides for our citizens and our nation. Thank you so much. Let's ride for the brand.